Hi, Josh Barker with Josh Barker Real Estate, and thank you for checking out our market update for the month of October 2021. Like we like to do each month, let's go ahead and start off with that sales report for the Shasta County Multiple Listing Service. This report comes out each month, and it breaks down sales data for both active homes and closed homes, and it kind of compares one month over the other, and it can go year over year. So for this month though, we want to zoom into that active inventory. Over the last 6 months, we've experienced a 30% growth in active homes for sale here in the local market. The lowest point this year was back in March when we were sitting at roughly 463 properties for sale. Currently, we're sitting at right around 656 properties for sale. So our inventory is growing. Buyers are very happy because they have more to choose from. However, home sellers that are on the market right now are beginning to see their days on market before they get an offer is beginning to rise. And that's largely because there's more competition and buyers are taking longer to make choices when it comes to purchasing. So going forward, we're expecting in this fall season that perhaps our inventory may begin to level off, which is a seasonal trend that we normally see. But there are a few factors I'll be sharing later in the video that might suggest that we might have some additional inventory coming to the market here. And so that's something that we're all gonna have to watch out for. Home sales have decreased here in the local market by approximately 25% over the last 3 months. If you go back to June, we had roughly 367 properties that closed escrow in that month. This last month, in the month of August, we had approximately 290 properties close escrow. So you can see that the sale of homes is beginning to decline, and this really was not unexpected. The biggest changes that we're experiencing is that the migration pattern shifts that we experienced due to COVID and the pandemic, those migration shifts are slowing down. People that were able to move to another location because they were working from home, those types of movement is beginning to slow down. And of course, people that were buying second homes, that type of purchase is beginning to slow down. So all of that is contributing to a slower sales volume. And really what we're doing is we're transitioning from a pandemic-based market back to a more traditionally based market. So this isn't unexpected. And going into the future months, we're probably going to see a trend that resumes what we've seen this month. In recent months, we've heard a lot of conversations surrounding the California Eviction Moratorium. And what that was is a moratorium put on by the state where it made it more problematic for landlords to evict tenants that weren't paying rent if in fact they were claiming COVID as being one of the reasons why they weren't paying rent. So it made it challenging for some landlords. What was happening is that they weren't collecting the rent, they couldn't evict the tenant. And so we had this built up demand to sell, but the landlords had no legal means in which to do it, or very limited legal means in which to do it. Well, as of last night, on August 30th, the California Eviction Moratorium has expired. And what this means is that you're going to probably see these types of properties be able to be liquidated to the market here in the coming months. If you happen to be a person that's in the situation where you are being COVID impacted and you are a tenant, there are some resources online that you can investigate that will give you some additional protections in your properties, and we'll provide a link for you in our market update so you can get access to that page. The rental market here in Shasta County continues to remain extremely tight. In fact, a lot of the rental vacancy rate is just landlords that are taking back a property after a tenant moves out, putting a new carpet in and new paint, and they're simply reintroducing this home to the market, and it's factored in the vacancy rate. The housing affordability is becoming a problem because with there's so few rentals available, the rents are getting pushed up, and as they get pushed up, it has a push on housing affordability. Some people are beginning to think about the renting versus owning option. And it's a pretty complicated decision to make because everybody's unique situation is going to be different. The thing you might want to keep in mind is that whether you're paying rent and paying it to a landlord where you're paying down their mortgage, or if you own a home and you're paying down your own mortgage, either way you're making a payment towards something. And so the benefit of owning a home is that you're securing a housing cost expense by setting a mortgage in place where it's not moving up month after month or year after year, versus in a rental situation where rents are ultimately going to go up over time. And the slide that you can see to my right clearly is depicting exactly how much rent has gone up even since 1988. It's a trajectory at about 45 degrees. It's getting expensive. So it's something for all of us to be thinking about and talking about, and it's not going to be the right fit for everybody, but it certainly be just something to consider. Another topic that's been trending here locally that I'm sure probably most of you have heard yourselves is the housing affordability factor. How expensive is it really getting for homes right now? And so I wouldn't disagree at all. When you look back historically, since 2008, 9, and 10, prices are certainly higher than they were back then. And the affordability index was extremely low back then. The percentage of a person's income that was allocated towards housing was extremely low. Currently today, we're sitting at a 17.1% of a person's average income is allocated towards their housing expense. The historical norm is roughly 21%. And so even though we're not above the historical norm, we're certainly trending that way. But the one thing to keep in mind is that part of the reason why we haven't approached the historical norm is because we have historically low interest rates. So if we see interest rates start to move up, we know that's going to have an impact on housing affordability, and it would be highly likely to be much more closer to those historical norms. But right now, housing is less expensive than it was historically when you relate it to an average income versus its allocation towards a housing expense. New construction here in Shasta County has continued to perform extremely well. In fact, we're on pace to see construction levels that haven't been seen since 2006. The really good news too is that lumber costs are beginning to come down. And for contractors, they're looking to see those prices come down even further in the future. A thing that everybody is aware of though, and the biggest challenge that contractors are dealing with right now is the lack of skilled labor, the lack of getting their hands on actual kitchen and house appliances, and some of the other building materials that are necessary to facilitate the home building process. So their biggest frustration and the biggest challenge they have is actually getting what they need so they can complete the home. There is no telling here in the near future how easy or how much easier it's going to become because our supply chains are still disrupted, and that's certainly showing up in the construction field. But together we'll have to watch how that transpires over the next 6 months or so. One of the big questions that a lot of our clients are asking is about the future of home price expectations and where do we think values are going to be. There's a lot of good experts on both sides of that topic that have some pretty good points. I think the best way to describe the challenges that we're looking at going forward are going to be on two sides of an equation. One side is what we refer to as tailwind. Tailwind is where we're actually naturally pushing the housing market up as long as nothing drastically changes on the economic side. An example of a tailwind would be lowering of interest rates, family formation, migration, having the cost of construction being extremely high, and then perhaps even low inventory relative to demand. All those things create a tailwind that pushes prices 3, 4, 5% up every single year as long as things don't get too crazy. Now on the other side of the equation you have what's called headwind. Headwind is where these are the pressure and the factors that can push prices down. The largest contributing factor would be the availability of financing, the type of loan products that are available, and ultimately interest rates. There is one thing that most experts do agree on. The biggest headwind that the market sees in the housing sector is rising interest rates. If interest rates go up quickly, that's going to be a major headwind, and it may or not be overcome by the tailwind examples that I gave you earlier. Again, it's something that all of us are going to have to watch out for, but one thing that we can all keep an eye on is what interest rates are projected and what they're doing going forward. So in any case, I want to thank all of you for taking your time with us today. As always, if you have any questions, we're always here to help. Thanks again, and make it a great day.